When I was 5, my parents got divorced, so that kind of was a big a traumatic event in our life. So we had moved into a low-income neighborhood, so there was a lot of risk factors in our own family life and then in the neighborhood itself. And then one day we had a crisis in my house with my sister having a tantrum, and so we just had that paper there with the phone number on. So my mom had called, and that was the first time we had contact with one of the workers here, and they came right to our home and helped her out. So ever since then, we attended the program as kids. And for me, I just remember the food. We always had healthy snacks and being able to make friends, and it really did make a big impact for me. Like even now in my work, you always hear it. You have one person in your life can make a difference, and so for me, it was the workers. It was Jane LeClaire then, and it actually was Colleen, who I work with today, that I just remember always open arms, like there to give you a hug, to encourage you and support you. And even as a young mom myself, I was a teenager, and so at 17 I was pregnant, and that was the first people that I went to. It wasn't my own family, it was them, because I felt that connection and that caring. And
I think everybody at some point in their life goes through something that they need help with.
It's a hard thing to ask for help, and it's a hard thing to accept help, but we all need it. And I think that when you do get it and you do accept it, you appreciate it so much.
In terms of the importance of my work, I think it's invaluable. Oftentimes people, think that it's every man for himself, sort of like survival of the fittest, but there are so many individuals that need support.
It's the voice for the people that don't sometimes always have a voice. They can't advocate for themselves as well as you or I could. They can't speak up when something's wrong, so we're kind of the eyes and ears for them.
I have some concerns about our social safety net. To me, I kind of look at it as a fishnet, except it's got holes in it. And so there's some things that get caught in it that seem to work very well, and you're able to meet what you need to do. However, there's other times where people are falling through the net and we're not doing enough. The change I would make in the system would be for the government to understand the importance of what we do. This isn't the place to always hack and slash and cut. This is a place, if you want to look at the next generation, this is the place you need to put the money in to assist them in becoming better people and make better choices. If you continue to cut and slash in our area, I don't even want to look at what the future is going to look like.
There's been a big shift since my first beginnings. We have been shorthanded for quite some time. We had a layoff about 2 years ago, and that really affected our capacity to handle the large quantity of families that are attending our program. We've grown in popularity, and since all-day learning has impacted our program, and so the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds that were attending on a more regular basis are now in school full-time, and we only see them on PD days or vacations.
People aren't getting the services they need, whether that be because there isn't the services in that community or there's lengthy wait lists and times. There's staff burnout. There's a whole variety of reasons why people aren't able to access those services as easily as they should, and I feel it's really important that that gets raised and that awareness is there.
I wish that there was more services in the community for and easier to access services for mental health with children under the age of 16. I think that comes up daily. Also, it's frustrating that a parent would have to consider abandoning their child to CAS care in order for those kids to get mental health services. I find we often see families after a crisis has happened.
Privatization in my sector looks like a lot of the full-time jobs are disappearing. Many people are now part-time or casual on-call relief workers, which means they're not there to provide that continuity of services. It's they come in a day here, a day there. It's different people who are doing different things. So that continuity of services is not being carried on.
That was probably the most drastic change I've seen as we closed all of our group homes. We're seeing a lot more clients placed outside of the city. therefore impacting their ability to see their family members, visit their parents, have contact with people that they may have been connected to in their own community.
Safety and security is always a big challenge. There's a huge disparity between OPS, safety and security standards, and our safety and security standards, and valuing the work that we do. And I mean, it's not just about the money, but that's part of it, is respect for the work and respect for what we do and the risk we take every day.
The primary thing with privatization in our field right now is the passport funding. Passport funding is money that is awarded by the government, anywhere from $4,000 a year to like upwards of over $30,000 a year. It just depends on how they rate in that scale when that tool is used. So, and then that money is usually entrusted to a family member, and then they can do with that, they hire workers, and that's where the privatization comes in, because they're hiring workers on their own. However, my agency, what they're doing is they are they're brokering, more or less, and so they're using our staff to do the passport work, and they're brokering that money for the families.
And that is taking away from our jobs. People are hiring with passport dollars, people with no education and no experience, which is affecting the people that we support, because they're not getting the structure, the guidance, the experience and the education that we can offer them.
Privatized care means lack of quality care. I think it just becomes about the nickel and dime and not about the quality of care for people.
We have the qualified staff in agencies and in services. We need the funding so that those staff can do their jobs, so that people with disabilities can experience the same human rights as other people do.
I support a young man who his dream job was to work at the university. And his first day of work, he called his mom because a hockey player who he was a big fan of spoke to him. And he had seen him wearing his jersey. And he said, "Oh, are you a fan?" And he said, "I'm a #1 fan." He said, "And I also work here now."
I put the towels in the laundry, the jerseys, but I hang them up. So it's kind of fun. I can't put them in the dry, they might shrink on me. Oh, I take the laundry to the sports medicine clinic all the time. So it's a fun job to do.
Our supported employment program, we provide support to people with a developmental disability in the community seeking paid employment. So what that entails is we would meet with the people to first find out what their dreams are and where it is they would like to work. And with that, we do what's called discovery.
They updated my resume, we updated my references, and I went in and met with them, and they said that I'm a perfect fit for them because I do a lot of like computer work and filing, so that's what stands out. It's at a new law firm in town, and this is my second week. And basically I just do like filing and coding and indexing for them.
Oh, I think it's important in any community, but in Thunder Bay, being a smaller city that we are, the inclusiveness that we have with our employers here has grown just in the past few years that I have seen with the amount of people, jobs in the community here in Thunder Bay. And not only entry-level jobs, but jobs that people really want to make into their career. And those are some jobs that we have set up.
Problem now, when I look at the entire system, is that it's all about the net. I mean, it's about trying to, in theory, catch people when they're falling instead of preventing that in the first place. So I'd rather see more, social wings, that people are not put in these positions in the first place. Then, we put all these services in when things have already fallen apart and there's really no way out. Just so that we can feel better that there's someone intervening and someone to blame if things don't go well. And I think partly that's how our system is designed. One of the biggest issues that families face are is social inequality, structural inequality, financial inequality, and unions are, they're the answer to that. A strong union workforce, a strong union movement raises wages, addresses a lot of those issues. And look at what unions have done, certainly historically, to address issues of inequality. So when they're at their best and they're going to rely on people in social work and those kinds of fields to bring that messaging back and hopefully come up with some strategies to help these families.
I definitely think there's challenges. Probably on a daily basis there's something that comes up, whether it's case specific or whether it's systemic. And so I think that the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that our funding for the agency has been cut quite a bit lately. I used to be involved just when I was a student, actually. It wasn't even when I was working. I was a student, and I worked in the sexual abuse groups that we used to do here, there'd be groups for offenders, there'd be groups for victims, like child victims, or there'd be groups for non-implicated parents. And I really enjoyed that work. I thought that was very helpful. And also there's nothing really like that in the city. And so one of the main challenges of having our funds cut is that those programs were also cut. And so you run into a lot of cases where they could probably use some help like that, but since we don't offer it anymore, we were hoping that someone in the community would pick that up, and they didn't, there's kind of nowhere for them to go.
We as frontline workers and listening to the people that we service, they're the ones that really, I feel, haven't been heard. They develop all these things, but it's like developed in isolation without any assistance from the front line. We're the people that do the work, kind of thing. And the youth are the ones that receive the service. So it would be great to have feedback from those folks.
When you work directly with families, a lot of time the parents that we work with are asking for additional help in something as simple as budgeting or dealing with their teenagers and issues that they might have with toddlers that is very different from teenagers. And we just don't have the facility, we don't have the money, we don't have the people to actually provide that service for them. So it is lacking, and we do see that on a regular basis with our families.
People that are homeless, people that have the least options, that have met, that are at the very bottom in a sense, it's almost like there's nowhere else to fall, they end up with us. And if you don't have shelter, if you don't have the basic needs of life, which is essentially shelter, food, and clothing, these are not people that are asking for possessions. If you don't have that, what do you have? These would be people on the streets at the mercy of the environment and nature, criminals. It's just, I can't imagine what it'd be like if my work disappeared.
What did happen to your furniture? Can you ask me? Yeah, what happened to your furniture? Didn't you get furniture when you left the shelter?
Yeah, actually, I did. But I had to sell them to pay for law school, applications and stuff like that.
So you just kept what you needed?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first got to the shelter?
Yes, I remember. It was one night. I was taken to central intake by a police officer, and then I was transported to the shelter.
And what do you think was one of the best supports when you first got there?
One off. That's a tough question. Having to choose, that's not easy, because at the shelter there are various programs. For example, I had immigration issues, I had family issues, and I had criminal issues. And having you guys put me in touch with various lawyers, that was very important. And then counseling. You guys also got outside counseling help. That was also that was a big deal.
Because you were there for a year.
And a little bit over a year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You lived there for a whole year.
Yeah.
A whole year of watching people come and go.
Yes. watch people get housing, watch people go back to their abusive partners.
Babies born.
Babies born, babies killed. Well, not there, but...
Not while you were there, though.
Huh?
Not while you were there.
Yeah.
And it's where you came out, right?
Of course.
It's where she came out to us.
It's, but Amy claims she knew.
I did know.
Yeah.
But when you first came, you weren't comfortable saying that you were lesbian.
Because
your experience in Jamaica had been so horrific and traumatic. And you had other trauma that you were dealing with.
Yeah.
So you were there for a couple of months before you told us.
Yes. And then
Do you remember the day?
You know what? I honestly don't remember.
You don't remember?
I remember like saying it every day after that. Like I couldn't stop saying it. More space is definitely needed. More support for, like I said, frontline workers are needed, because these people are the buffer. For example, you go into the shelter system. Like I said, Amy was the one who put me on to lawyers, so she acted as a buffer. In terms of healthcare, they also assisted. Like if I had to go to the hospital, Amy would be there constantly. She's not leaving, right? Until it's really late and she has a child, so you have to go home. I remember one day I asked Amy, like, how do you do it? How do you take on other people's problems? I can't even deal with my problems, right? But yet on a daily basis, you take on the problems of how many women? A lot, right? How do you not internalize? How do you not find the tallest building in Toronto and jump off, right? So, like I said, support is very important for people on the front line. And a lot of people pay attention to firefighters and, EMS workers, but these people also see a lot of crap. They see a lot of shit, okay? And they need to finally get the kind of attention that they deserve.
I think you have a lot to be proud of, because you've come a long way in the last 4 years.
I have.
So when you left, you started with a paralegal program?
Well, it didn't start there. I have to give thanks for small blessings, right? One of that is getting this apartment. This is home.
Yeah.
It may not be fancy, but it's home. Before leaving the shelter, I spoke with you guys about wanting to go back to school. So that's what I'm doing now. Again, I can't overemphasize. None of this would have happened. I'm not saying I've not accomplished the world. I've asked Amy a few times, like, what are we doing tonight? Do you want to take over the world? So that's what I'm doing. Again, small things, but getting there. That's basically what I'm doing right now.
I think anyone that gets involved in this field, and I'm probably no different from everybody else, it's just the relationships that you build with your clients and being able to be part of their journey as they're going through some challenges and kind of overcoming those challenges, that it's really just the reward of being part of that process.
Yeah, there's lots of rewards, right? I don't think anybody would do it if there wasn't rewards. I think sometimes it takes time, but you do see an impact, right? I run into people, like they're always like, oh, Leanna, like you were my rock. And you think, oh, really? Like I didn't know, you didn't know until you hear that kind of feedback, sometimes years later. So sometimes you see some really great changes happen for a family. So that's the reward.
There's actually a story of the starfish. I don't know if you've ever heard it. A young person walking on the beach the morning after a storm, and someone else is watching this young person stooping over, and it looks like they're throwing something into the surf. Stooping and throwing, and when they get closer together,
the person who's been observing says, "What are you doing?" And the child says, "Well, I'm throwing the starfish back into the ocean. They were washed up because of the storm." And the person observing looks at the beach and it's just littered with starfish and says, "Why are you doing that? Like, there's no way you can help them all." And the person bends over and throws another starfish in and says, "You made a difference for that one."
Being happy every day when you go to work and enjoying your work is not something that a lot of people have, and that's something that happens for me when I go to work. I'm happy to get up and go in the morning, and I know that I'm making a difference. It feels good.
I feel very passionate about what I do, so when I talk about program, and I can talk a Blue Streak, I always emphasize how wonderful it is to provide services for people who appreciate it.
I like the kids the best. I mean, they're great. They're kids, and you see instances like Christmas or the first snowfall. Sometimes we forget that they're little kids, and some of them have never matured beyond maybe 10 years old, and you see them literally playing in the snow or excited to open Christmas gifts or birthdays. I mean, it's the little things. So that's why we do the work we do.
A metaphor to describe the social net is like this solid tree, a huge tree that's deeply rooted in the ground. And if it was not deeply rooted, it will be shaken, it will fall, it will be twisted around. But because we are anchored, ourselves, our staff members, then we are a united front, and we know that the services that we have to offer are incredibly important in the communities that we serve.
We're about a vision of inclusion, and it takes a community to grow a person.